And here's the queen on this hive. You can see her there with the pink dot. Hello everyone, welcome back. We're gonna get in the hives and see how the queens are doing, see how the brood is developing. I don't think it'll take long today. We'll be in and out pretty quick. Let's get to it. Here we are getting into the south hive. It's a beautiful day in May. What are we looking for today? Today we're looking to make sure that the queen is still laying eggs. Last time we were in, a little over a week ago, we saw eggs and brood in the hives. So we know the queen was there. We know that she's laying eggs. We're just going to look, make sure she's still laying eggs. We're going to look to see how many eggs she's laying. And then I'll show you what the brood looks like as it progresses up through its stages. Looking at this frame, right there in the centers we have some capped brood. That is where the queen bee laid some eggs, hatched into larvae. The larva grew until it filled up the entire cell. The worker bees then capped over with wax, and those bees inside those cells are now pupating into adult bees. Now you can see that is kind of a coarse looking wax compared to up here in the corner. This is honey that's been capped over with a thin layer of wax. So you can tell the difference between the brood and the honey. So besides that, there's a lot of pollen in this frame. This is not your typical frame. We'll look at some others. Now this frame is what we're looking for. All of that frame, almost the entire thing, is covered in capped brood. There are some cells, looks like where maybe the queen missed laying some eggs in there, but this is what we like. We know that when these bees emerge, our population is going to take off. I didn't spend very much time in that first hive. We could see that there were a few frames of eggs and brood and capped brood. Brood is what we call larva, and capped brood is the larva that is pupating into adults, and it's capped over with wax. So that's some of the beekeeping lingo that you might hear from time to time. Okay, this is the frame clear out on the end. What can we see here? We can see up here in the corner there's some honey. Then we've got some pollen below the honey as we work our way in. Now this is interesting. Let me blow these bees out of the way. Okay, now let's take a look at this capped brood. You can see this capped brood right down in this area. Looks a little different from the capped brood up in this area. Okay, this capped brood down here is full of drones. Drones are bigger. I'm seeing if I can see a drone right off the bat here on this frame, but I don't. Anyway, I showed you a drone in the last video as it crawled across the frame. So you can see that these stick out a little bit further from the cells, just because the drones are bigger and they protrude a little bit. These up here are all going to be worker bees. Let's take a look at the other side. And over here we've got, you can see there's some drone cells, and up here are a few worker cells. Wow, look at that frame. That is beautiful, isn't it? There are still some cells that the queen missed. As a queen matures, she stops missing all of those cells. Later on in the summer, we'll see some frames that are just completely covered with brood and capped brood, and there won't be any missing cells in the middle. So let's turn this around, look at the other side. And we've got the same thing over here. This is going to be a productive hive. It will take a little while for this hive to get going. because it did start brand new, but later on towards the end of the summer it'll be booming. So here we have a third frame. Things are looking good. Can you see straight down in those cells? Larva is growing. In the cells up next to the capped brood, you can see that that larva is bigger, and as you move out from there, the larva gets smaller as it's younger. And here again, some drone brood. You can see the larva in these drone cells better. It's a little bigger, a little easier to see. Okay, now here we're getting towards the center of the hive, and it's difficult to see down into those cells because this comb is lighter. But I did see some eggs down in there. So the queen has moved over on this frame, in this hive, over towards the center. And here's the queen on this hive. You can see her there with the pink dot. As she comes around, there she is. I got this hive with a marked queen. That means they mark the queen with a little dot on her back, just behind her head, just to make her easier to see and easier to find. So each year is a different color. So if you had multiple hives that you were managing and you want to know how old the queen was, you could tell by the different color of dot that she has on her back. I'm going to put this hive back together and let these bees get back to doing what they do. They are starting to get a little bit antsy about having me in their hive. Every once in a while I get a bee that headbutts my veil. That's one of their warning signs. If they're getting a little irritated, before they just swoop in and sting, they'll start buzzing around your head and headbutting you, just bouncing off of you a few times, and as a warning that, hey, you need to move on. Leave me alone. Leave our hive alone, and we'll leave you alone. So I'm going to put these hives back together and we'll check on them again later on. All right, thanks for coming along with me today. The hives are looking good. Won't be long now before we have some new bees emerging and things start taking off. I'll see you next time.